If you've ever turned your key and your car just sat there doing nothing. Or worse, your engine shut off while you were driving, yeah, that's a nightmare, then this video is for you. Today, we're talking about something small but mighty, the ignition switch. It's one of those parts we take for granted, until it starts acting up. And suddenly you're stranded in a parking lot wondering what just happened. In this video, I'll walk you through exactly what the ignition switch does, and then I'll break down 8 clear symptoms that yours might be going bad. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on more car maintenance tips. Now, let's jump right in. Alright, so first, what exactly is the ignition switch? It's the electrical part of your ignition system that gets your car going. When you turn your key or press the start button, the ignition switch is what sends power to important systems like the starter motor, fuel pump, and ignition coil. Basically, it tells your car, hey, it's time to wake up and run. It's small, but if it goes bad, it can mess up your entire drive. Now that you know what it does, let's dive into the symptoms of a bad ignition switch. Number 1. Car won't start even with a good battery. One of the most frustrating signs of a bad ignition switch is when you turn the key or press the start button and absolutely nothing happens. You know your battery is in great shape, your lights and dashboard come on, but the engine just won't crank. It's easy to assume it's a starter issue, but the ignition switch could be the hidden culprit. This switch is responsible for sending power from your battery to the starter and other systems. When it begins to fail, the electrical signal can be cut off entirely. You're left there turning the key over and over, hoping it'll magically come to life. If the engine stays dead silent with no clicking or cranking, the ignition switch deserves some suspicion. It's especially likely if the problem is random and inconsistent. A faulty switch can play mind games like that. Number 2. Car stalls while driving. Imagine cruising smoothly down the road when suddenly, your engine shuts off without warning. The car doesn't sputter, it just dies as if you turned the key off mid-drive. This isn't only scary, it's also a big red flag that your ignition switch may be failing. When this switch becomes faulty, it can lose contact while driving and cut off power to your ignition and fuel systems. Essentially, your engine is being told to stop even though you didn't ask it to. It's like someone pulled the plug unexpectedly. If your car starts fine but randomly stalls while you're driving, don't ignore it. This issue is not just inconvenient, it's dangerous, especially at high speeds or in traffic. A mechanic can test the ignition circuit to confirm the cause. Number 3. Key won't turn or get stuck. Struggling to turn your key in the ignition isn't just annoying, it's often a sign that something's wrong with the ignition switch or cylinder. You might insert the key and find it stiff, stuck, or completely unresponsive. Sometimes it turns halfway and stops, or you have to wiggle it just right to make it work. While this can be caused by a worn-out key or a damaged cylinder, a failing ignition switch is also a common culprit. Over time, the internal contacts inside the switch wear down and can jam. If you ignore this and force it, you could end up breaking the key or damaging the steering lock. Either way, if your key isn't turning smoothly like it used to, it's best not to ignore it. It may be time to replace the ignition switch assembly. Number 4. Flickering dashboard lights. When your dashboard lights start acting like a light show, flickering, dimming, or going out completely, it's not just a glitch. A bad ignition switch can cause inconsistent power delivery to your car's electrical system, including the dashboard. If you notice the lights come on when you turn the key but flicker or fade out right after, that's a classic symptom. This happens because the ignition switch isn't holding its electrical connection properly. It's like trying to plug your phone charger into a loose outlet. It might work for a second, then stop. Don't dismiss it as just a bulb issue. When multiple lights flicker at once or reset randomly, suspect the switch. This kind of erratic power behavior points to a failing ignition connection behind the scenes. Number 5. Accessories stop working while driving. Have you ever been driving along and suddenly your radio shuts off, your air conditioning stops blowing, or your windows won't roll down? It might seem like random electrical failure, but your ignition switch could be the reason behind the madness. This switch has different positions: off, accessory, and on, and if the internal contacts wear out, it might momentarily cut off power to certain systems. These accessories rely on a stable power feed, which the ignition switch controls. So if it's cutting in and out while you drive, things can start powering off unexpectedly. Sometimes they come back on, sometimes they don't. If you notice this happening more often, especially with no fuse or wiring issue, it's worth checking the ignition switch. It might be hanging on by a thread. Number 6. No noise from the starter motor. When you turn the key and expect to hear the familiar clicking or cranking of the starter, but instead get silence, that's a warning sign. Now, if your battery is fine and the starter itself checks out, the issue might lie in the ignition switch. The switch sends the signal to the starter solenoid to engage and spin the engine. A bad switch may not send that signal at all. It's like clicking the start on your computer and nothing happening, not because the computer's dead, but because the button is broken. It leaves you stuck and confused, thinking you've got a dead car. This symptom often gets misdiagnosed, but once you rule out the battery and starter, the ignition switch becomes a prime suspect. Number 7. Engine starts but then suddenly dies. Sometimes the engine starts like everything's fine, you get that moment of relief, only for it to die immediately after. If this happens repeatedly, your ignition switch might be sending power to start the car but then cutting off the moment you release the key. That means the run position on the switch is failing while the start position still works. The car cranks, starts, then can't stay running because the fuel and ignition systems lose power right away. It's a strange but common symptom. It may even seem like a fuel issue or a faulty sensor at first glance. But when the engine dies just seconds after starting and does it consistently, you should have that ignition switch inspected closely. Number 8. Burning smell or heat around the ignition. This is one symptom you shouldn't ignore, because it can escalate quickly into something dangerous. If you notice a burning plastic smell near your steering column or feel unusual heat when touching the ignition area, a faulty switch could be overheating. The internal electrical contacts might be shorting or sparking, generating enough heat to melt surrounding plastic. In worst-case scenarios, this can lead to smoke or even fire. Sometimes the ignition will still work, but that smell is a clear warning sign. It's your car's way of begging for attention. Turn it off, disconnect the battery if needed, and get it checked immediately. A burning smell in the ignition area is never normal, and it usually means the switch is in bad shape. So there you have it, 8 symptoms that your ignition switch could be failing. If you're noticing any of these signs, don't ignore them. It's always better and cheaper to catch it early than to get stranded or risk an accident. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more car maintenance tips just like this. Got questions? Drop them in the comments, I read every one. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.